had 9 road games moved to larger arenas last year, but just 4 so far for 2026. WNBA teams are moving more games to different arenas this upcoming season, but Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever have significantly fewer of those games. The WNBA's regular season schedule announced Wednesday, including 19 games moved to different arenas, up from 15.
9 games down to 4. That's not a scheduling accident. The Indiana Fever had 9 road games moved to bigger NBA arenas last season to accommodate massive crowds for Caitlin Clark. This year, just 4 games. Meanwhile, the league increased total arena moves from 15 to 19 games. So, if demand is supposedly higher than ever, why are they scheduling fewer Fever games in big venues?
The Washington Mystics, Connecticut Sun, and Atlanta Dream each moved 1 game against Indiana last year, but none for the upcoming season. The New York Liberty, Portland Fire, Mercury, Valkyries, and Minnesota Lynx are already in NBA arenas, removing any need to move games for bigger crowds. Is part of this due to injuries? Well, they would like you to believe that, I think. They would like you to believe, oh, well, she got injured last year. We don't want to move. We don't want to commit to a bigger arena. God forbid.
Here's where the official explanation starts falling apart. Teams want you to believe it's about injury risk. Caitlin missed most of last season after that groin injury at TD Garden on July 15th. So they're being cautious about committing to larger venues. Sounds reasonable until you look at what actually happened with attendance. Even after she announced she was returning, those move games still sold out. The Fever averaged 15,884 fans at road games last season, 4,000 more than any other team. And that's with Clark only appearing in 3 of the 9 move games before her injury.
You have names like Renee Montgomery, part owner of the Atlanta Dream. Names like Sheila Johnson, part owner of the Washington Mystics. Sheila Johnson, the same person who threw a fit that Caitlin Clark was named Time Magazine's Woman Athlete of the Year. And she said, why give it to Caitlin Clark? Let's give it to the whole entire league. If you ask me, this is a subtle play from folks like Sheila Johnson and Renee Montgomery. Because at the end of the season, they decreased the amount of Fever games that have been moved to bigger arenas. Yet in totality, they increased the league from 15 games to 19 games.
Let's talk about who's making these decisions. Renee Montgomery, part owner of the Atlanta Dream. Sheila Johnson, part owner of the Washington Mystics. Remember Sheila Johnson? She's the one who publicly complained when Time Magazine named Caitlin Clark their Athlete of the Year, suggesting they should have honored the entire league instead. The Dream moved 1 game against Indiana to State Farm Arena last year. This year, 0. The Mystics moved 1 game last season. This year, also 0. The Connecticut Sun moved a game to TD Garden where Clark got injured. This season, nothing scheduled.
4 times this season. You see how massive the season was? You see how much of a success it was this year? And we only had Caitlin Clark. See, we don't really need her. I told you guys we were going to do this without her. Interesting. The decrease in moved Fever games comes after Caitlin Clark played in just 13 games last season. Clark appeared in just 3 of the 9 moved road games, including July 15th against the Connecticut Sun at TD Garden. Clark injured her groin in the 4th quarter of that game and missed the remainder of the season. The Fever remained the league's biggest attendance draw last year, averaging 15,884 fans.
Here's what makes this particularly revealing. The Chicago Sky and Dallas Wings each had 2 games moved to bigger arenas last season. This year, they've each got exactly 1. Meanwhile, Toronto's expansion team has 5 games moved to different venues, including 2 each in Montreal and Vancouver. The league is absolutely willing to move games to capture bigger crowds and new markets. They're just strategically limiting how many of those games feature the Fever. The math tells you everything you need to know. Total move games up from 15 to 19. Fever games in those big arenas down from 9 to 4. That's not about injury concerns or scheduling conflicts.
Sports. But teams could still change course before the WNBA regular season starts. I think that is likely. It's easier to say, we're gonna show everybody that we know this league is good with or without Caitlin Clark. We're gonna prove it. But once you talk to your owner buddies and they say, look how much we made. I mean, Indiana Fever came to town. Look how much we're making. Right? Once Renee Montgomery and Sheila Johnson talk to the owner of the Las Vegas Aces, talk to the owner of the Chicago Sky, and they say, hey, what was that gate looking like? Oh, damn. That's a lot.
Could we look at the 4 games they did schedule? July 5th against Vegas, August 8th against the Sky, August 18th against Toronto, August 20th against Dallas. Notice anything about those dates? They're all deep into the season after the initial media frenzy dies down. Last year, the league scheduled 9 Fever games in NBA arenas right from the beginning of the season, capitalizing on peak Caitlin Clark interest. This year, they're betting they can build early season buzz without her, then strategically deploy those big arena games later. And there's another factor nobody's talking about. The collective bargaining agreement still hasn't been finalized. The 2026 season is genuinely in jeopardy of not starting on time. If you're managing an NBA arena, why would you block out dates for WNBA games when the league might not even be playing? Keep those dates open for Jonas Brothers concerts, Taylor Swift tours, Luke Bryan shows. If nobody books them, fine, slide in a Fever game later. But don't commit early when you could potentially host events that guarantee sellout.
Season against the Fever. The 2025 schedule was released 2 months earlier. The Dream announced in March that their game on May 22nd against Indiana would be moved to the State Farm home arena, home of the NBA's Hawks. The Wings announced a week later that they moved a game against the Fever to American Airlines Arena. A Dream spokesperson tells Front Office Sports that they are always exploring new opportunities. The 2026 WNBA season remains in jeopardy of not starting on time as the league and its union have yet to come to terms on a new...
The Chicago Sky announced in February 2025 that they were moving their first 2 games against the Fever to the United Center. The schedule had been released 2 months earlier in December. The Atlanta Dream announced in March they were moving their May 22nd game against Indiana to State Farm Arena, home of the Hawks. The Dallas Wings followed a week later, moving a Fever game to American Airlines Center. All of these decisions came months after the initial schedule released. A Fever spokesperson told Front Office Sports they can't speak to what other teams may do regarding venue changes, but teams could still change course before the regular season starts. Translation: we expect more of these announcements as we get closer to tip-off and teams realize how much money they're leaving on the table.
That there's no CBA deal reached. If I'm an owner of an NBA arena, if I'm in charge of selecting what events gets put in these arenas, well, without a CBA deal reached, why would I want to start already Xing out dates with potential WNBA games when I can keep those dates open for when a Jonas Brothers come to town, when a Taylor Swift comes to town, when a Luke Bryan or whoever come to town? Why would I start Xing out these dates? I wouldn't. It's not smart. I want to keep those dates open as long as I possibly...
Think about the position this puts those ownership groups in. On one hand, you've got people like Renee Montgomery and Sheila Johnson who have been vocal about the league's success not being dependent on any single player. They've pushed this narrative hard. The WNBA was always going to break through. Caitlin Clark just happened to arrive when the momentum was already building. It's a pride thing. It's about legacy. It's about not wanting the league's growth story to be reduced to one player's impact. But then you talk to the owners of the Las Vegas Aces or the Chicago Sky, and they'll tell you exactly how much revenue they generated when the Fever came to town last season. Those gate receipts don't lie. When you can move a game from a 7,000-seat arena to a 20,000-seat NBA venue and sell it out, that's not a marginal difference. That's transformative money for franchises that have operated in the red for years.
Those dates open for possible bigger events. And if nobody takes those dates, fine. Then we'll slide a couple Indiana Fever games in here. But until then, we're keeping these dates open. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I appreciate all the support. Like the video. Let me know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel. That would mean so much to me. See you next time. And as always, take it
easy. So... you've got this tension between the narrative some owners want to push and the financial reality every owner has to face. The compromise schedule fewer fever games in big arenas early. Claim it's about injury caution or strategic planning. Then watch what happens. If attendance holds strong without Caitlin drawing massive crowds, they get to say, "See, we told you this wasn't about one player." If attendance dips and revenue suffers, they quietly announce more venue changes in February and March, just like they did this year. It's a calculated hedge. They're testing whether the WNBA can sustain record attendance without leaning heavily on the Caitlin Clark effect. And if the test fails, they build in an escape hatch. Here's what makes this strategy particularly risky. Last season, even with Caitlin missing most of the year, the Fever still led the league in road attendance by a massive margin, 15,880 fans per game, compared to 11,000 for the next closest team. Those games were sold out before the season started, before anyone knew she'd get injured. The demand was real and sustained. But this year, teams are betting that demand will transfer to other storylines. The Toronto expansion, the Portland Fire joining the league. New rivalries, new stars, new narratives. Maybe it works. Maybe casual fans who discovered the WNBA through Caitlin Clark last season are now invested enough to follow other teams and players. Maybe the league has successfully converted temporary curiosity into permanent fandom. Or maybe they're about to discover that star power still matters, that casual fans need a reason to care, and that building sustained interest takes more than one breakthrough season. The other piece of this puzzle is the media strategy. The WNBA and Nielsen ratings both claimed record viewership for year 2, even though Caitlin only played 13 games. They pointed to those numbers as proof the league's growth wasn't dependent on one player. But look closer at which games drew the biggest audiences. Fever games still dominated the top viewership slots, even the ones Caitlin didn't play in, because fans tuned in hoping she'd return or wanted to see how the team performed without her. This season, with fewer Fever games and marquee venues and time slots, we're going to get a much clearer picture of what the baseline audience actually looks like. Are people tuning in for WNBA basketball generally, or are they tuning in for specific stars and storylines? The league is about to find out, and they're doing it in a way that lets them control the narrative either way. If ratings stay strong, they'll say the league has arrived as a major property that transcends individual player. If ratings drop, they'll blame it on the CBA uncertainty, the delayed season start, or any number of external factors. And then they'll quietly move more Fever games to bigger venues and better time slots, just like we're already seeing happen with those February and March announcements. The Washington Mystics and Connecticut Sun both moved games against Indiana last year. This season, nothing scheduled yet. But watch what happens in late winter when those teams look at their projected revenue and compare it to what they made last year when the Fever came to town. Watch how quickly injury concerns and scheduling challenges disappear when the financial pressure mounts. Because here's the thing about professional sports. Pride and narrative matter until they start costing you real money. You can talk all you want about the league's growth being inevitable and not dependent on any single player. But when you're looking at the difference between selling 7,000 tickets and selling 20,000 tickets, when you're looking at premium seat revenue and corporate sponsorship opportunities, the math becomes very simple very quickly. Sheila Johnson can complain about individual recognition all she wants. Renee Montgomery can push the collective success narrative, but they're both businesswomen, and businesswomen pay attention to revenue. The question isn't whether the Caitlin Clark effect is real. The attendance numbers and viewership data already answered that question definitively. The question is whether the league is willing to fully capitalize on it, or whether they're going to let pride and politics limit their own growth. Right now, they're trying to have it both ways. Claim the growth isn't about one player, while still scheduling just enough Fever games in big venues to capture some of that revenue. It's a middle ground that probably satisfies nobody. Fans who want to see Caitlin play in person are frustrated by limited opportunity. Owners who want to maximize revenue are leaving money on the table, and the league itself is conducting an experiment that could backfire spectacularly if attendance and viewership drop, without that star power driving interest. The Toronto expansion gives them cover. They can point to those 5 move games and say, "Look, we're growing. We're reaching new markets." This isn't about any individual player. But Toronto's success doesn't change the fundamental question. Did the WNBA just experience a Caitlin Clark-driven spike that's about to normalize, or did she genuinely unlock a new level of sustained interest that will continue regardless of whether she's healthy and playing? We're about to find out. And the league has structured the season in a way that lets them claim victory either way. Even the underlying financial reality tells a very different story. Watch those February and March announcements. Watch which teams suddenly discover they can move games to bigger venues after all. Watch how the narrative shifts if early season attendance doesn't match last year's numbers. Because right now, the WNBA is betting it can prove it never needed Caitlin Clark in the first place. They're betting the growth was always inevitable, that she just happened to arrive at the right moment, and that the league will continue thriving whether she plays 13 games or 40. It's a bold strategy. It might even be the right long-term play for building a sustainable league that doesn't depend on any single star. But it's also a strategy that could cost them millions in revenue this season while they try to prove a point. And in professional sports, expensive lessons about pride and narrative have a way of forcing very quick course corrections. So keep watching those schedule announcements. Keep tracking which games get moved to bigger venue, because the gap between what the league is saying publicly and what teams are doing privately is going to tell you everything you need to know about whether the strategy is actually working. What do you think? Is the WNBA making a smart long-term play by not over-relying on one star? Or are they fumbling a massive opportunity because of pride? Drop your take in the comments, and let me know if you think we'll see more fever games moved to NBA arenas once the season gets closer.